How's everybody doing today? Listen, we're at day 228, moving right along, 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tom Nyback. I think I'm starting to get my groove back after vacation. Oh, busy next couple months heading into 2020. A lot going on. Going back to school, get my degree in philosophy, and stop asking me what you do with that. Philosophers don't ask what they do with that. They philosophize. But yeah, well, something will pop up, I'm sure. My life's always gone like that. Less I worry, better it'll be. On that thought, our project, we're focusing, if you're new to us here at 365 Days Towards Racial Change, we're trying to tease out how Black people came to be in the situation that they are in America. I was just looking at my MSN feed, and Jay-Z is partnered with the NFL. Jay-Z's a big billionaire now. Can't tell him nothing and all that. And some of the players are like, we still have the Colin Kaepernick history and stuff like that. The long story short is like there's let me just go this direction with it. We go a lot of directions with it. This particular player was disappointed in Jay-Z about this partnership with the NFL, and because of the way the NFL submitted to political pressure, so to speak, to keep Colin Kaepernick out of the NFL, to kind of ban him, so to speak. Much like what happened to Muhammad Ali when he didn't go fight the Vietnamese. The point is, we live in this government, this regime that's dictating. It doesn't do it overtly. It just withholds resources, denies promotions. It um, and you can't prove who's doing it, or unless they are some kind of radical type of white supremacist or a group that is overtly, rabidly, vocally against you. You can't prove where this is coming from. Although, you know, uh, when the resistance comes, you can get a good idea, right? But that's the mind of Black folks. We're going to talk about some of that today, coming out of Dr. Anderson's PowerNomics book about this country. Boy, I'm starting to get it. I'm getting the idea that this country likes to, we wave a flag and we write down a lot of stuff. Uh, when you lift up the hood, when you look inside, when you dissect America, you see that the country's not been favorable to everyone. You know, it's not a land where everybody's on a level plane. And I'm just getting that in my mind. Yeah, that the professional athlete is a millionaire, right? Hands down. But he still has complaints because he's being infringed upon. He's being compelled, you know, to participate. I don't begrudge him staying in the NFL, making all that money, but at least having, excuse my French, having the balls to push back on the system like that. Lawrence Taylor, yeah, I remember back in the day, great New York Giant, outside linebacker. I think that was his position. He hurt a lot of quarterbacks. I know that. Defenseman, he's argued similar points, and and America gets so uptight. Like I don't understand why America gets an attitude when it's called out on its behavior. Well, I guess people are like that. I've noticed that in my life. When I call somebody out on something, they get an attitude, and suddenly they don't want any more to do with me. I like to hear the truth. I really do. Let's have a conversation. That'd be different. You know, challenge me. We'll have a conversation. We can state our views as long as we're not knifing each other. I'm good. Long story short, the mind of the Black American, and that dovetails perfectly into what's white America about. What's it doing? You know, and again, if this is a land, and let me disclaimer: I've got white mentors. I've got white confidants um, all over the place. Uh, I'm just talking realistically about the system. Now, the system is created by whites for whites and is administered by whites. We're going to talk in the next day or two, about how that um, presents itself in American society. Very, very important, very interesting. It's amazing that I live, and it seems lately past, coming up on a year and a half of consistent progress. If I just keep my head when all about me are losing theirs, I think that's Rudyard Kipling, a white dude. So, so it's not about hate or that kind of stuff. It's about, just looking at the systems, paradigms, things like that. Okay. So, but will white America get honest with itself when it's called out on the carpet on its hypocrisy? Okay. Second, financial um, literacy for Black folks, paying attention. Okay, right now, going through a challenging stock market cycle and stuff, downward trend, recession is being touted, and things like that. Um, I'm reading a book by, I always get this wrong, a guy named Griffin, The Creature from Jekyll Island. And it's helped me, like when I see the news cycle about downward trend on stocks and things like that, trade wars. From reading that book, I know it's something much more complicated is going on underneath what I see on CNN. The news cycle is just the tip of the iceberg. There's stuff going on inside. You know, there are people that are going to benefit no matter which way uh, things go financially. Um, much of this is planned. Something very strategic is going on. It's not like, oops, we got an economic problem. It just crept up on us, like it snuck up on us, like this mystery economic thief. No, there are scientists behind a lot of this. So don't fret if you are following along. It's August 14th, 2019. Don't fret. Somebody is manipulating things behind the scenes, like the Wizard of Oz. you know, Someone's blowing fire and uh, shouting at us and stuff. But if we can just pull back the curtain, you'll see the reality. Financial literacy. So be at peace. All right, behind me you'll see, well, let's first talk about Dr. Anderson. I'm still working on getting my groove back on my introduction. I'm inspired by a man named Dr. Anderson. We're spending some extended time looking at different aspects of the argument, mainly economic, but there are other things we look at. I read three of his books: A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask, Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, PowerNomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at PowerNomics.com. Behind me, you'll see the hashtag #US2 symbol. You'll find Black women supporting one another, having a great conversation there. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF. Have a Black Facebook experience. If you can't find your flavor here on the World Wide Web, then do what I did, start your own. Also, we have story time. We're going to get back to this very soon, I promise you. I built up a bunch of notes that I want to digest to get us back on the historical, factual path. Although this book is just a fictional illustration of the points we go over. So we're going to get back to story time very soon, I promise you. Okay. Today we are in PowerNomics. If you have the book, we're starting off on page 135. It's economic action step number 3. It's restoring the original economic intent of the civil rights. So let me start this out. I may be repeating myself for the next 2 or 3 days, but let's just drum this home. Historical, factual basis for some of our arguments. Back in 1865, also we'll put in 1866, Congress was wrestling with some amendments. 1865 Civil Rights Act was shot down by the then president. Do you Google and you'll find that president. Forgot to put his name in notes. It's easy to find. It was vetoed 1866. They came back. It was vetoed again, but Congress passed with 2/3 of the vote. Congress was very, on the surface, it looks like such a friendly Congress toward black people. And it was the conversation intent was to say, look, we are fostering a community and a safe space for all people, but it was kind of like they were trying to do some overkill so black people would be protected in all this. This is also the time Congressman Thaddeus Stevens, back in 1865, argued on behalf of blacks. We'll say that civil rights. Well, he wanted to frame civil rights as an economic issue. He says, look, the black people are going to be slaves or free. If we're going to protect them and make them a part of having competitive, then here's the phrase, or the 40 acres, a mule, and $100. And that's kind of where that came up, and spilling over into this long reparations argument, right? We're talking over 135, 19, 54, 150 years talking about reparations and stuff. But that's kind of the genesis of that from Congressman Thaddeus Stevens. And what Dr. Anderson, he wants us to understand this historical context, the position and original intent of the civil rights. So that when we talk about civil rights today, social integration, and all of these politically correct terms, we can know the source, the root, how it works, and where how it became diluted, and how other groups came in and crowded us out. I'm a musician, and I spent a few years in school studying tonal harmony. And it is the root and basis of much of what we listen to. Even our most popular music that we might listen to, is a violation of some of the original rules and intent of the mechanics of theory behind consonance and dissonance in sound, and what we do with that. Well, it's the same way with civil rights. It's okay. You can have your heavy metal with your power chords, but do you understand that power chords, these parallel fifths, is a violation of the strict rules of tonal harmony? It's okay. It sounds great. I listen to it a lot myself. But I listen to it understanding um, what it is, right? Civil rights, social integration, also bringing in terms like immigrants, people of color. We got this big melting pot. When the original intent, and also notice the original intent didn't fully serve the people it was aimed at, black people. Um, let's go move on a little bit. USA Today. This is Dr. Anderson did some research between 1989, 1999, economic boom for ethnic households in America. But it's interesting, blacks were still dead last and underneath whites, of course, no surprise there, but Asians and Hispanics, and these are people, as far as black existing in the land, are really newcomers here. I don't even see any respect for seniority going on out here at all, and that's a huge problem. You got people here that within a generation or two have risen up and are situated well in America's economic landscape, where blacks, that same journey, in the text, I think he states it could take 17, 18, 19 generations to overcome, rise up. You know, so, and this is real. Um, the challenge for black people to rise up. You got Jay-Z, a billionaire. But the billionaire status isn't the norm for black folks. We'll talk about this fixed position. And, this is Dr. Anderson. He's given us some more reasons. We talked about this in the past couple days about this fixed position, this chasm between whites and blacks that keeps moving. Blacks regress, whites may teeter a little bit, but as blacks progress, you see the same, if not an exponential increase in the betterment for white folks. But that's another thing. We're not going to go all into that, but it's interesting to note the Asians and Hispanics, doing quite well in the land. And blacks need to part of us needs to wake up, get up, but part of us, we need to start to address some of America's systemic issues with and how it's enforced against black people. Blacks still on the bottom. Uh, as usual, researchers, politicians say it's the fault of blacks, totally dismissing any kind of resistance and push back to black progress. I don't just want to walk, you know, into the highest echelons of power and control and wealth in America, but I do I want my merits to mean something. I want to compete, you know, eye to eye with the way the system is moving. The system is against black skin. That is the issue, and it proves itself out in the economic conditions of black folks and white folks. But follow the money, and you'll get a good idea um, on how to validate the argument. Uh, our impoverished state or challenged uh, state for black folks uh, in America, it does gain attention from time to time, but you'll notice when it gains attention that, you know, it gains attention, uh, those in power, Congress, whoever, kind of opens the door, presents legislations, makes some kind of public outreach, and because they don't explicitly name blacks as recipients, I don't think you'll ever see that uh, ever again. And you don't see it in the way resources and people are situated when you look at documents like Civil Rights Act, the Constitution of the United States. They have all kinds of meetings and notes about how they're going to treat black people, but when the document's presented, it's this big old happy bandwagon where everybody is to participate and whatnot. So when that happens, black people, it dilutes the resources that at least are intended for black people. It nudges black folks out of the picture, you because you got so many groups that want the same thing. I can't begrudge them. I just, it's just not the game is just not fair. You know, it's the black folks are handicapped in the process here in America. Um, you'll find this it's very problematic. This economic issue and the economic problems against black people because you just because of this dynamic of other groups piling in and piling on. I used to handle dogs, right? And dogs are smart. They know how to tell time and they know what's going on. And at the end of the day, when the dog parents are picking the dogs up, the dogs start crowding at the gate. And they're just a big pack at the gate. So you gotta, when you get one dog, you gotta do a lot of maneuvering to get the one dog out the gate and not let the whole pack out, right? It does happen to the inexperienced dog handler. Same way in the United States, United States forwards these ideas and plans for black folks, but everybody else crowds in the gate and makes it very challenging to get these resources to black people. And also recognize black is not the politically correct um, politically correct resource or politically correct recipient of these resources in America. You know, I had a friend also. Let me tell you this quickly. I got a good friend. We talk every day, white dude, and we've been friends 14, 15 years now. And I remember he talked about um, we're both going through changes economically and stuff like that. And he talked about being at poverty and struggling financially, making a certain amount of money every year, a certain salary, a certain wage. And the numbers he was spitting out were like astronomical to me because I feel like I'd live well if I made the kind of money he's moaning about. Uh, so there's a difference um, in the mindset, right? See, for think take just an arbitrary figure. Let's say 27 grand. Now, I would handle that pretty well. I could make that work and wouldn't be too fussy about that. My white friend, on the other hand, would struggle with that. That it's a kind of lifestyle he's being robbed of. A different mindset. It's another thing to think about in this restoring the original intent of civil rights. See, it'll put you get back to the original intent of the civil rights being an um, economic concern, then the black mind could then be conditioned to feel that same way. As long as blacks were coming up and at least being on a level plane with white folks, it's not, any kind of change, progress for black people is not going to work if the ceiling keeps getting moved with white people up here, black people down here. That's always going to be an issue. So our way and our desire to progress, do well, do better in America has to be more. I think we're going to have to be more interested in economic competition and whatnot than simply um, getting more stuff. Because everybody gets more stuff. If we get more stuff, and the people on top get more stuff, we've not moved anywhere. You know, that's the problem fundamentally with what we're dealing with on the economic front. Something to be very, very much aware of. You know. So we'll talk another day or two about this original intent of civil rights um, in America. Go way back to 1865, 1866, and see what congressmen, white men, were doing. That's that's the other problem. We'll talk about this as well as white people having their conversation black people are in the room, but they're talking about it like we're not even there. Don't you hate that? Two people start talking like they're talking about you, like you ain't even in the room. Boy, that's so disrespectful. That's what the legislators and everyone in this country continues to do. That's I didn't vote in 2016, and that it was because part of that feeling. I didn't hear nobody was talking about my issues at all. So why participate? Don't let me digress. I don't want to hold you hostage. We're out of time. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm Tomlin's Nyback. That's 365 days towards racial change. Day 228 out of the way. Come back. We're going to continue this discussion and weave and wind our way through it the best we can. I'll see you soon.